you're looking for a more human connection. It's very hard to find that, over all the techno and
Yeah.
the pillheads and whatnot. But
Jesus, Jesus, what? Where has this gone?
but hey guys, welcome back. It's Monks in the Trunk. Me, your boy James, and my boy Makola, and we're here with Neve Barry today to talk about all manner of interesting things. First and foremost, the documentary which she made recently about male mental health. So why don't you give us a little rundown of what you've been up to in the last while, what your projects have been?
So on Saturday, I started recording documentary on male mental health. So I interviewed like 7 guys that I've met in the last year that we've had that kind of discussion before, and we were very open about it. And so I just asked them if they wanted to be in a documentary, because a lot of them actually donated to a fund that I put up over summer. So I asked them, and they came over to my apartment. It was like a 9-hour shoot, so
Wow.
It was like very, very long, and I was doing all the cameras and stuff. So, and listening to them talk about mental health was super interesting, but also very draining for me.
I would say so, yeah.
Because and then afterwards my friend took me to dinner because it was like such a rough day, but it was so worth it in the end. But so now I'm editing it, and it's taking far longer than I thought it would. But so that's what I've been up to the last couple of days. Nice.
And was it just talking to the people before you started recording that gave you the inspiration to actually make it into a documentary? The topic, what drove you to put it on camera?
I think I suppose like last year was just like a year of getting to know people.
Yeah.
In first year, 'cause I didn't know a lot of. I'm from Cork, so I moved up to Dublin, and I didn't know a lot of people. But I kind of found myself that everyone kind of struggled with mental health going into first year of college. So that topic of conversation just came up a lot during the year when I was making friends. I think it's an important part as well of making friends, to understand how people feel if people are going through certain stuff. It's good to know, because certain people act a certain way because maybe the experiences that they've been through. So that's kind of what I always wanted to touch on in a documentary, like emotions. Like I study sociology, so it's very like I kind of like that stuff.
Yeah.
But I think over summer I made friends with this guy that I actually went to school with, but I never really talked to. And one of the first conversations we had, which was actually quite intense, it was just about like masculinity and how he finds it hard to open up to males, whereas he finds it very easy to open up to females.
Yeah.
And I just so happened to kind of be there. And then I think we were just talking about crying, and then that's kind of where the whole thing kind of hit me. I was like, oh, you know what, I should like do something on this, like, because I knew I wanted to do a project when I came back.
Yeah.
And that's just kind of how it came about. So yeah.
Wow. And during the documentary, you interviewed a different, like a range of different characters from different backgrounds.
Yes.
Yeah. Would you like to?
Yeah. So
elaborate?
half of it was like guys who came from a rural background,
Yeah.
and the other half was guys who came from Dublin or Cork.
Yeah.
And then some of them came from very like or were immersed in lad culture, whereas the other half, like, it just kind of happened to be like that, I think.
Yeah.
And the other half kind of had more of experience where the like GA culture and like lad culture, they were very like outsiders of that. So it was a very good mix of like getting both perspectives coming together. A lot of them a lot of them were like musicians, some were filmmakers, some were just studying computer science or into drawing.
Yeah.
It was very mixture of different people. So it's very different mixture of people.
And did you find a distinct sort of difference in the way that, say, the artists and the musicians would answer questions or deal with the topics at hand versus the sportsmen or the, as you said, the lad culture sort of?
I think it was interesting because my schedule kind of like got all messed up. So I was like an hour behind. The camera died at one stage.
Yeah.
So 2 of the musicians that I was interviewing, they were actually in the same room. And I think they only met once ever. And they're actually like, one guy's opening up, Declan, he's opening up for Greg this Saturday in one of his gigs. So it was kind of like the first time they properly had a conversation, and they just so happened to be in the same room. But like Declan went first, and he was quite like on the surface, I would say. He, even after he spoke, he was like, oh, I wish I spoke about my own mental health, because he was quite more like on other people's mental health. Whereas Greg then went after, and Declan decided to stay and listen and ask questions. But like, it was like they were both having a conversation, like 3 of us were having a conversation, but Greg literally sat down and talked for an hour, and like he was incredible. Like, just the stuff he said, he was so raw and real, and it was I didn't think he would be that, like, he would be that raw, because a lot of the boys did find it very hard to, regardless if it was if he was a lad or if he was kind of an outsider. So I was actually kind of surprised, because I thought it would be the opposite. But I think it just kind of depended on their personalities, how they interact with people. I was definitely surprised by some people opening up more than others. I think more the guys that were more in the lad culture, I feel, they were a little bit more reserved, definitely, but they were still great, like, so yeah.
And I mean, do you feel that there's truth in the sort of generalization, that the musicians, or the creative types, will be more willing to open up, just in general, than the other half?
I think because if you're a musician, you're more in touch with your emotions, because you're trying to write songs and like be creative, whereas guys like that do sports, their outlet is almost not ignoring their emotions, but expressing it in a different way that doesn't involve actually saying anything. So I think even for me, like, I'm a person that's very in touch with my emotions, very sensitive, very, I do find it easier to be friends with guys that are more creative, because they're more expressive, and I find it easier to understand them. Whereas like with lads, like, I find it actually difficult to be their friend, because we're very, very different in the way we express ourselves. So I don't know if that came out in camera. I didn't actually kind of like dive deep into that difference, because I think the point of it was just male in general. But definitely, now that I'm like thinking about it, there was a difference, and there was definitely a difference in how they express themselves.
What was the most interesting observation you made throughout the whole shooting period?
I think the main thing I learned about, like, outside of video production with male mental health, I think the main thing that people were saying, that when they opened up, they weren't being taken seriously, and I was actually really surprised, because I thought the issue was them actually opening up, but the issue was people responding to how they were opening up, and that was kind of surprising, because I thought the issue was like them not being able to have an environment where they could open up, but it was mainly to do with how their friends were responding to how like the culture almost responding to how they felt. So I think that's definitely something that should be changed, but the question is how. And I think we kind of learned how. I think the more we all thought about it, the more we were like, wait, the government aren't actually doing a lot on letting people know how to respond to that. Okay. Or
but would you say it's the government's fault or society?
I think it's probably a combination of both. Maybe it's
I think it could be, there's a big impact on society, like from society, and the way they're not open to new things, and this the whole thing when guys actually open up is weird, if you get me. So like society just, they're not used to it, if you get me. But what do you mean by the government not doing enough?
I think maybe the government not doing enough, meaning through education. Because, I mean, if you think about it, like when we were younger, we all got like sex ed classes that were not even that great, really, to be honest with you. Yeah. But like the only time we ever mentioned like mental health or addiction or anything like to do with that was SPHE and CSPE. And even in that, it was, even one of the guys even said it, it's very surface, but what happens underneath all that, like what's the understanding? Like we're only being giving like basic bits and pieces.
Yeah,
it's
you
like
just skim the surface, really.
Yeah, it's like if we were learning about history and we're like, oh, so like the Holocaust happened, and you know, but like why did it happen? What was actually going on?
They seem to give you the what, but they don't delve any deeper
Yeah.
as to why, these situations arise. But
And it was interesting because some people thought that, like some of the guys thought that it's nothing to do with that. Maybe they're like, oh, you're just a kid, maybe you shouldn't learn it then, maybe when you're a little bit older. But I think it's maybe the younger the better, because it just becomes more of a norm.
yeah,
But I don't know if mental health should become a norm. I feel like it should just be easier maybe to talk about.
yeah, it's interesting you say that. I mean, it really should be a sort of thing where people should be emotionally intelligent enough to just be able to be like, here, listen, I'm having a bad day, and people can be like, yeah, it's okay, come here, we'll talk about it.
Yeah.
But as you said, there is a sort of weird situation. I think even just the difference in the way that lads and girls deal with, trying to comfort someone. Girls obviously will be much more open about it, much more touchy feely. But even lads we use humor a lot. As a sort of like it'll be grand.
Yeah, even when I
Sarcasm as well.
Yeah, humor, sarcasm. Yeah.
Even when I asked you about your experience, you were like, I know I don't even know you that well, but you just wanted to completely avoid it.
Yeah. I think it's a funny one because you don't feel pain in that way when you're distracted. Like you're in a podcast studio, it's busy, you got stuff to do, your mind's occupied. But if you're at home, you're in your bed, you're like, shit.
It catches up to you.
It's quiet,
Yeah.
You obviously have nothing else to distract yourself unless you want to listen to depressing music, which nobody likes. But I think there's definitely a societal difference in the way that people respond to problems, that men have and problems that women have, and even more so, a difference in the way that men respond to men's problems versus the way women would respond to problems with both genders.
Yeah, because each guy seven guys all said as soon as I opened up, they just take the piss out of me, or they'd slag me, and I was like I had that experience like maybe once in a while, but not like I would always usually be taken seriously, but I didn't really know that was actually the case. So I think it's more like just guys need to just stop taking the piss sometimes and just respect their friend and how they feel, and have a
that's when
serious
true friends
conversation.
come in, I feel.
Yeah.
It's like you just need to be sure that you can like trust the person you're opening up to. That's another thing I feel.
Yeah, because that's actually an interesting one. In childhood, if you don't have that, it can lead to really serious problems down the line because you don't know how to. You'll always have that repressed fear of opening up to people because of the emotional consequences of it.
Do you guys like find it hard to open up to your mates or?
No, I've been lucky to have a good group of mates who actually listen. But I mean, I know people who don't have that, and it's kind of obvious. You know what I mean? Like you just see it, and it is just sort of a laughing. You can turn anything into a joke if you try hard enough. I mean, and it's not even that hard to turn most things into a joke. I do the comedy skits for this, and we do some stupid shit. It's all coming soon. Don't worry. It's really a funny one because there is a distinct neurological difference that also has to be taken into account emotionally between men and women, and obviously it's a societal thing because society is an overall expression of, a combination of what's going on in here and what's going on around, but there is a difference that should be taken into account with regards to the emotional capacity of both, or the way that works best for each.
But even to touch on that, like you were saying, like I've been lucky to have friends around as well, but it's also everybody's responsibility to be there for their friends, and that's what you kind of forget about. Like you're always kind of hoping that there's going to be someone there for you, but like sometimes you have to take the first step and maybe approach that thing to someone, whatever it may be. And when you start noticing these things and when you start actually thinking about them and maybe talking to people on like a different level, people do come out. as long as you give them the opportunity to come out. So that's the thing. If someone
Yeah.
comes out like through their own will, and like forces it upon someone else, maybe that would be taken, you know, maybe they'll take the piss.
Yeah.
But if you're the one that's maybe trying to help someone express some feelings, then it's taken a whole other way, if you get me.
Yeah.
So-
As well, I feel like in college, a lot of the guys kind of, they didn't say this on camera, but just over the last year, they say like, oh, they're making loads of, even myself, like we're making loads of friends. But I think you know it's a true friend when you're just having a bad day or something's going on and you say something, they say the right thing, or they're comforting, or they're just being very like, you know, they're just there for you.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing that all of them kind of want and needed when they were going through that, was just someone to be like, oh, you know what, I don't know how to help you, or I do know how to help you, but regardless, I'm here for you. And I think that's really hard to find in college. I think that's something I even struggled with.
Yeah.
It's like trying to find someone that's like, you know, there's like different layers to conversation, human relationships. Like one of the guys, Thomas, was talking about that. Like the first layer is just very basic. How's your day? How's the lectures? And the second is like family, friends, and then the third, you know, it gets deeper and deeper and deeper. And I think as humans, like we all want that, like at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And
It's like a
regardless,
basic need,
yeah. So yeah, it's like the hierarchy of needs,
Yeah,
you know.
matters, yeah.
I think it's like the same thing when it comes to friendship. Like
Yeah.
we all need a good friend, and we all need that. So I think with guys, like they want to have that, but they just find it maybe a bit more difficult to get the layers that they want to find in guys. But they seem to find it in girls. But maybe because it's easier for them to talk to a girl, or because she's more responsive and more emotional. But everyone kind of had a different experience. So
Yeah, it's funny you say that. I feel like, you know, they always say that a lot of communication is not actually verbal. You know, it's all body language and facial expressions. But you don't see it that often. You don't see that empathic face on blokes. Even, like, I think it's hard to actually, for us, to display empathy. Like, even if we're feeling it, it's hard to show somebody that we feel sorry for them and we want to comfort them, you know. Like I know a lot of you see this in doctors a lot, you know. They can be, you can get doctors who'll just be like, yeah, tell me what's wrong with you, give your medicine, get out of here.
Yeah.
But then I have a really good one in Castleknock. I'm not going to name drop him because, you know, probably doesn't like my podcast, but yeah, no, you always feel like he's listening and he's like, you know, I actually want to help you, you know. Because it's just something in the face, and girls always get that right. It's much easier for them to do to express the sort of
Interest.
yeah, express how they're listening, and
Yeah.
you know how you know, a genuine want to you know, improve the situation in any way possible, but also just be able to put themselves. You know, there's a difference between sympathy and empathy. To be able to put yourself in the situation with the person, you know, in that vulnerable state, and actually, you know, just surrender to it and be there, so they just don't feel so bloody alone.
yeah,
You know?
like you can't teach kids how to be
No.
empathetic or sympathetic.
No.
It's more of like a human thing, but you can't teach them how to, like, I'm not a psychologist or by any means, like, so I don't actually know how they can do it, but they sure can find some way of just like letting kids know, like, oh, if your friend's going through this, like, these are the signs of someone, you know, like, I know, like, one of the signs of like someone maybe committing suicide potentially is like they cut their hair, or they change their appearance drastically and they start giving away their stuff. But like, I didn't learn that through school. I learned that through like TV,
Yeah.
or I learned that through the internet. And it's like, it's just a very simple thing to tell someone. And I think that's just all they have to do, you know, just have like that one class maybe once a year that's like maybe an hour, 2 hours long. It can really make a difference, and maybe it can just make a student feel more not normal, but more like, okay, what I'm going through it's not, you know, like when you're going through something when you're younger and it's not being discussed, you think it's such a weird thing going on and you're
Yeah.
the only one. But I think if they talk about it more, becomes more, okay, this is actually a topic of conversation.
Yeah.
I think that's just what they need to do.
Yeah, there's definitely a cause to be made for making it more open, making the discussion more open. I mean, we're kind of good at that nowadays, or at least we're trying. I feel like society in general is trying to be better at dealing with mental health issues. Whether a lot of the things work in practice or not is a different story, but I feel like the good intent is there.
Yeah, I agree.
But,
Especially since we're growing up, I feel it's a bit more. But I do feel like even as a kid, though, it's still not there for that.
Yeah.
And I think because most of these things start when you're a kid, so then it's not treated until you're like a not a preteen, but like you're in your late teens. So then maybe the problem becomes worse, and it could have been addressed when you were younger, and it could have at least, you know. But I just feel like definitely there's something more that they can do.
Yeah, big time.
Even colleges can do a little bit more. Like in Trinity, like, yeah, they have counselling services, but like it's actually like making that call is very difficult for some people. Actually going to the appointment, it's very difficult. There's just should be just that maybe a little bit more of a push for people. But yeah, there's just something more.
Anything like in particular, any way would you know any way of maybe pushing it a little bit further? Any ideas like?
I think even in college, like giving an actual mental health class and making it mandatory, because when we were in halls in Trinity, we had to go to a consent talk. So maybe even if it was something quite like that, just even 20 minutes, just be like, this is here for you. We weren't really told that much. Maybe we were, but I don't think it was prominent enough, because I don't really remember that being too much in my face. Whereas I remember like consent and like other really important topics were, and that's great. But this is also another one that should be put in our faces.
It is the biggest killer, suicide among young people. And funnily enough, men in general make up 80% of all suicides in the country. But and there's probably a reason for that. But it's funny. I mean, like, there are probably practical things they can do, like how hard is it to say, are you okay?
Yeah.
Because that's all it takes, because like if somebody's in a really, really bad way, if you ask them how they are, they'll break down, and they'll cry, and they'll tell you what's up. Like, it's not that hard. And like just simple things like that. And obviously what you were saying about the clothing changing and things like that, just little practical tips, stuff to watch out for is good, and like
it's just small things,
just small things. It's not crazy.
And it's important not to be distracted by other things as well. Like, there's all these videos, because like people don't notice stuff like these. Like, say for example, if you did give people all these tips, like they still go unnoticed because, say for example, there's something else that's grabbing their attention. For example, there's this video I remember I watched on Facebook, and it was like, this couple, and they were really
close. Video you're talking about, yeah. And
they were really close and all that stuff. They were in school. It was like a really nice video, the whole thing. But at the end, like the whole video showed was there was a guy in the background planning to shoot down the school. And that's the whole thing. Like, you get distracted by things. Like, it's almost like an invisible person, if you get me.
Yeah. True.
When they go into that state of mind, like, they kind of just retract from society and any sort of social interaction.
Yeah.
And it's hard, even as a person that would be very social, to see that person that's maybe in the lecture but sitting by themselves, because you don't know, like, maybe they, but I think if you see them more and more sitting by themselves, it's even just you being able to talk to them, or just even befriending them.
Even like a simple hello, that's what it is.
Yeah, it's really, really important, just those small things. But it's very hard for people to, I think, because we get so caught up in other things, maybe we forget to notice it. And like, as humans, like, yeah, we are selfish. We do like to look after ourselves more than others, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't just say a simple hello to someone. And maybe they might not want to talk to you, but at least you said something. It's kind of like it helps.
It's already like, that little spark, that little flare.
Yeah, and even if they really want the help, then you can take more and more steps. Even you could just make a new friend out of it. It's just, you get more benefits out of.
Yeah, what do you have to lose?
Exactly. I think that's what people need to learn. What do you have to lose when it comes to these things?
Like, it's nice to be nice. That's like one of the things. And if more people are just nicer, like, everything just works better if you can.
Yeah.
It's a basic little principle, but it works. It's like, it does work.
Yeah, it does work. Yeah,
It does.
It's funny though. I mean, like, it's very easy for people, especially in college. You know, in a big crowded lecture hall, 300 people. It's very easy for people to be invisible, you know, and to purposefully be invisible. You don't. You could walk into any of my
Yeah.
lectures, sit in the back, and you know, it's like it's another person in the crowd. You know, it's like 400,
Exactly.
400 people.
Especially 360 in
Yeah,
best.
it's crazy.
Yeah.
You know.
It's huge. And for example, the engineering is interesting because they have a smaller group. There's a smaller, well, not even. They have a big class size, but they're more tight knit.
Yeah.
More group work, like more involuntary. Like you can't choose your own groups and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's good because it just eradicates all sort of self confidence. Well,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I think
Wait, what's the word?
Eradicates all self doubt, maybe.
self doubt.
Um,
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, self consciousness. There we go.
Yeah.
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 There.
Yeah.
And that's important. And even the smaller lecture halls,
Yeah.
everybody
I
kind of has to
agree.
sit together. Because in a big course with 360 people, what you realize is there's all these little groups,
Yeah.
and
It's very
everybody's got a group.
cliquey. Yeah.
And another thing is, what I realized with halls, like on campus accommodation
Mm-hmm.
and living locally, is when you live locally, you just commute in and you go back to your local friends almost.
Yeah.
But with halls, you're kind of stuck in that environment, and if you don't have like friends from home with you or your local area, for example, if you're coming from Cork or Galway
Yeah.
or Limerick, wherever, it's so much harder to make friends and
Yeah.
make real friends.
Because, like, at the beginning of college, like, I had friends and I thought, whoa, these people understand me, they get me. And then as soon as I started not to like college a little bit, they suddenly were retracting. They were just kind of like, oh, we don't have time for you. We're just going to, like, go over here and
Yeah,
I'm going to go over there.
yeah.
And that's as soon as I realized, damn, they're not my real friends. But in Cork, if that happened, because it happens all the time.
Yeah.
Happens in school. If it happened in school, because I moved school when I was 17. But I was able to, like, fall back on other friends because they were there for me. But when I was in Dublin, I had nothing to fall back on. So I felt very, like, isolated.
Yeah.
So it just kind of takes you trying to get out of that funk and just kind of try because all you can do is try.
Yeah.
But I
that's
do
it.
agree with the lecture thing because we're in the same course and
Shit.
Our robot's going off.
I knew it'd go
Yeah.
off.
All right, guys. We'll be back in 2 minutes. Don't you go anywhere. All right. We're back, and we were talking about groups and whatnot in large lectures. I'm not sure who's the resident expert on groups and large lectures, but you guys are both in best, so you know more than I do. I mean,
And Evan.
and
Okay.
Evan. Hey, Evan.
We've all
Yeah.
we've all experienced.
We've all experienced
pains.
the pain. True.
of big lectures.
Oh,
And
they're scary. It's intimidating. That's all it is.
You know, I think it suits some people.
it does.
Big
yeah.
lectures, because you know, obviously there's more people and there are more distractions and it is more intimidating, but it is easier to just be like, I'm 5 minutes late, I'll just sit down in the back anyway, it's fine.
But for most people, like, I think it's hard because you'll sit next to someone new and
Yeah.
that can be a bad thing because there's no stability.
And you never really
When-
know.
Yeah,
Mm.
and it's such a small thing. You're like, oh my god, who am I going to sit next to? It's not a big deal if you're sitting by yourself, but you
Yeah.
could, if you're having a bad day and you're sitting by yourself, I think that's the last thing you want
Yeah,
to be
sitting
doing.
by yourself is a shit one. I'm not
Yeah,
gonna
even
lie.
today I just like walked into my lecture a little late and I was sitting by myself, and after a while I was like, this is kind of crap, you know. I was like, oh, but then you kind of get over it and then you just forget about it and move on. But yeah, it is hard because you're always sitting next to someone new and it can be very, very hard to make friends when you're consistently
Yeah.
seeing new faces.
I think college is kind of hard for that, kind of rough for that. I mean, like, you're like suddenly thrust into this massive building full of people who don't have any classes with you. You don't have that stability of being like, yeah, I'm sitting beside this person, you know, and like, you can't exactly, you know, unless you have an assigned seat, but who the hell does that? You can't really, you know, shuffle across the entire lecture hall to sit beside whoever you want to, you know? So it is a bit of a... I feel like you get, like, emotional jet lag from the constant switching and, like, the, just the sheer scale difference between college and secondary school, and people don't really talk about that much. But, yeah, it's a real thing. And it's quite jarring.
There is like pros and cons, I think, to secondary school. Like pros, secondary school, that I think the worst thing that can happen is just people being mean to you.
Yeah.
And it's very hard to escape it. but then it's very hard to go and make new friends. But there is more like stability
Yeah.
In the idea of secondary school. So the transition into college, it's more like if someone's being shit to you, you can just move on,
Yeah.
forget about them, cut
True.
them out, and you will never probably see them again.
Yeah.
But then with college, it's like it doesn't provide stability, and it's more, people don't really bully people really in college, not as much
No.
as secondary school. Not to say it doesn't happen, but then more in college, then it's like the issue is yourself and like what you're dealing with in any situations you're dealing
Yeah.
with. Whereas secondary school is like that, but it provides more stability for sure.
Yeah, it's, I mean, like, as you were saying, the sort of, probably the scale of it, and the fact that it's so easy to disappear means that it's like you don't have that like fear. In secondary school, if you're having a shit time, you're trapped, but in college, you're completely free. And there's a weird sort of, you know, it's like the opposite of claustrophobia. Like there's almost too much space, and you know, it's like a vacuum. But you know, I suppose it does.
And
suit some people.
Yeah, there's that way out. You can just not go to college.
Yeah, you can just not go to college,
know?
and really, there's
Yeah.
nobody. You know, it's another one person missing in 400
Yeah.
people. You know.
You don't even realize, like,
Yeah.
most people don't show up, but you kind of, I'd say everybody just doesn't even think about maybe all the people that don't show up because of some other reason, you know?
Yeah.
And maybe that's like something that people should think about, and maybe the people who maybe are the ones that who aren't showing up to the lectures, maybe they should like inside them find a need or a want to go to the lectures and maybe get out of their comfort zones. Because that's another thing, getting out of your comfort zone is really important.
Yeah,
If you struggle with some sort of mental health issue,
I think so too.
because there's no other way of overcoming it except accepting it and kind of looking for some sort of relief, you know?
Yeah.
I was having a conversation with my friend the other day just today, how she said like she was missing from like all her lectures because she was really down, and then someone actually reached out to her that was in her course, but their course is quite small.
Yeah.
But she just said the fact that someone even noticed that she wasn't there and actually reached out made her realize, okay, something's going on, I need to fix it. And then she did her best and
Yeah.
tried to get out of that funk,
Yeah.
get herself more out of her comfort zone, but in a good way, like
Yeah.
in an efficient way. But I think it's so important to reach out because
Big
someone
time.
might not want to, but sometimes you just have to get it out of someone,
Yeah,
and
you
they'll
really
always
have
feel
to just
better.
be consistent with it and just
Yeah.
persist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not be nosy, but like persist
Yeah,
is a good
yeah.
word. Yes.
Yeah. Well, even that, like that persistence from somebody else, like you can't experience that and be like, oh, I hate this place. You know, all these people trying to care about me and ask me how I'm doing. Like, oh, college, wow, oh, like just even that, even a small thing like that, it grounds the sort of I'd say the feeling of maybe loneliness. But if you have a small course, like all the better, because people can't notice
Yeah.
that you're just not there some of the time. And you know, of course, people have their reasons. You know, whether it be, you know, just a emotional issue, or like, you know, some people have to work. You know, and this and that. But
I think one of the guys in the documentary, Declan, he was saying how he feels that everyone actually is on the same or similar emotional scale.
yeah,
Like everyone is very emotional, but everyone just deals with it completely differently and contain it more or express it more, or, you know, and I thought that was kind of an interesting perspective, because I don't know if that is true or not, that it was just his opinion. So it's just like interesting to see, are people actually
Yeah.
as
That's what-
emotional as I, like, are
Yeah.
we the same emotional, on the same emotional level? But I think emotional intelligence is another thing.
big time. Yeah.
So I think they do go hand in hand, but they're definitely separate things. So I think the more emotionally intelligent you are, the easier it is to reach out to people, read other people's body language.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that can be not even taught, but just kind of that people can recognize
Yeah,
in
big
school.
time.
Just
Yeah.
understand what that means and just try and improve on it.
Yeah, and you were saying that. I was saying people. You know, I'd say people probably do all have the same emotional range, or like have the same capacity for emotion, but I think it's more to do with the in the way that people express it. You know, slow and steady versus repressed and then like explosions. You know what I mean? Because you can have somebody who would strike you as like a really sort of stoic person or really down to earth, and they just don't get stressed about things. But then like suddenly like they have one bad day and they're all over the place. And they can't deal with it. And then you have some people who are like, they get a little bit stressed about this, a little bit stressed about that, but at the end of the day they'll go out and they'll laugh and have pints about it and it's fine. You know? But it's probably the healthiest way to deal with emotions, is to deal with them on an ongoing basis instead of letting them build up to the point that they're actually harmful to you or even anyone else. Like, you know, I mean, like, they're dangerous really when you mishandle anything. Like, we have emotions for a reason. They're tools. They're social tools, you know. They're there so that we do certain things. And you know, like, you do have to listen to what your body and your mind is telling you, because they're there for a reason.
That's such a thing I learned last year. My friend kept reminding me, Niamh, you need to listen to your body. And if you don't want to go out, like, don't go out. You're not, because you had a bad day, just don't go out. But I think that's funny that you touched on alcohol and going out for pints and stuff, because one of the guys on it was actually talking about how if he was feeling really, really bad, he would look at the way that he's been going out socially and his alcohol, if he was smoking like weed or whatever his coping mechanism is. He was just always reflecting on that. He always went back to that. Was I drinking a lot this week? If I was, that's probably why I'm feeling more down than I should. So he I think for the last month, he said, or over the summer, he went completely sober for a month. And he said he just felt so much better. But I think that is something as well, like, it's easy for some people to go out for pints, then talk about their emotions. They may want like a drink or two. But then sometimes it's kind of like, we shouldn't encourage that. We should encourage people to be more open about it when they're at their right self and they don't need a substance but then if some people do, then that's okay, but it shouldn't be encouraged. But if that's the only way you think you can get through to someone, then maybe you could try that way. I
mean, it almost seems like a problem, doesn't it? Like, that you would have to bring it to that point that everyone's off their heads before we start talking about serious stuff. Like, I think it does differ from person to person. I think some people, when they're down, they want to go out, or when they've had a rough day, they want to go out and they want to drink, or they want to do whatever. They want to go to a club and they want to dance. And then some people just, you know, it's more of a, I've had a bad day, I just want to be alone, you know?
Or I just want to Netflix.
Or I just want to Netflix, I mean, like...
and chill by myself.
Exactly, I mean, even, like, it's just, it's really not a universal thing. And I don't know whether that's a societal, whether that's to do with societal differences or just brain chemistry, really. Because obviously being alone, it has a different effect. Like, there are positive effects to being alone. You can reflect and you can think about stuff and you can process your emotions probably better than when you're with other people. You can be more introspective. But obviously when you're with other people, you do get that social interaction that is always good for you. Really. And, you know, when drink is involved, like, and you know, it probably changes the tone a little bit, but you're still getting that social interaction, and it still makes you feel somewhat less alone. You know,
I think one of the guys' main issue was him being able to, like, make friends that could understand that. You know, he found it very difficult for him to, I don't know, just like he likes human connection, and that what makes him come out of his shell. So when he's alone, he feels so bad, like worse and worse and worse, and he just feels he's failing. But when he's with people that don't get him, he still feels bad. So it's his idea. He just, in college, he wants to meet people that just get him, and that's what's like making him very anxious and depressed recently. Like one of the guys he kind of touched on it a little bit. He regretted not talking about it more, but I think but he even though he does find it easier though to open up when he's drinking, but he's trying his best now to just not do that and like
Yeah.
try and actually make friends that get him and not be around people for the sake of it.
Yeah, of course.
But he, being alone is a weird thing because some people thrive off of it and are able to recharge and recoup. Like I know over summer, like I was alone for most of my summer and I just recharged, recouped, and I felt so much better when I came back. But then some people are opposite, like living outside of halls now that, like for me, like and a lot of my friends, you're not around people as much. So for me, I actually kind of like that. But for other people, they don't know what to do with themselves. They're like, wait, what do I do? And then they're alone with their thoughts more.
Yeah.
But now a lot of people have good friends to turn to when that feeling dawns on them. But a lot of people still don't have that in college yet.
That's what you realize. That's what I realized with second year. In first year, you have halls as student accommodation. But second year, it's like you kind of realize who became friends with who.
Yeah.
And who's living with who. And it's really interesting to see that this is like what we're talking about now.
Yeah.
It's kind of like all the groups kind of became tighter, more intertwined, if you get me.
Yeah.
There's deeper roots there now. And it's better like that. But you have to realize that like we're saying, there are those people who maybe don't have that connection.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like, especially people maybe who are living alone during college.
Yeah.
And maybe don't get such an opportunity to go out and stuff. Not even that they don't get an opportunity, but they don't get as much of a incentive to go out.
Well, I mean, some people really get like a great buzz off going out. Like I like going to the pub. I'm not a big club
love
man.
it.
You know, I know you love it. I'm not a big club man, but you know, there are obviously it's a strange one. Because if you are going out clubbing, like if you are a very emotionally deep person, or you're looking for a more human connection, it's very hard to find that, over all the techno and the pillheads and whatnot. But
Jesus, what? Where has this gone?
Yeah, especially for people with like very sort of specific interests, or like, it's very hard to find someone, like, especially as a creative person, it's very hard to find someone who's on your wavelength. Like, if you're a sporty person, you're always going to find someone who likes sport, because most people do. But, say you design magazines, like one of our friends. I mean, like, we all love Shane, but like,
here,
except
listen. That doesn't determine it. What you're trying to say, it doesn't determine. Like this stuff happens subconsciously. Like you can meet someone subconsciously.
Yeah.
You know, you're just in the right place at the right time.
I think you just need to find your event too.
Yes.
Like I know it took me a while to see what I like to do. I like clubbing, or do I like more the pub and the...
Oh, and P.S. I'm not a pillhead.
Oh no.
He just assumed I was a pillhead, but I'm not.
I said pillheads.
All right.
Like, not you, the other ones. But
disclaimer.
Yeah, disclaimer.
Yeah.
Micola's not a pillhead.
Like for me, I love like a very typical, stereotypical place, but like I like Workman's because there's a big smoking area, and then the dancing area isn't the main part. So so there's a good and you can I've made so many friends in Workman's, and like I wouldn't expect.
You make all your friends in smoking areas. That's crazy.
You really do. It like encourages smoking a lot, but like that's another topic of conversation. But like for me, I like clubbing. Like it's fun, but I would only go maybe like once every 1 or 2 weeks, because that's not, like, as you said, that's not where you kind of make friends.
No, it's not.
But for place, I think anyone that does struggle to make friends and also wants to go out, I encourage them just to try and find somewhere that, like that has a good like balance of interaction that means something, and like clubbing and pubbing, so you get the mixture of both.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So I think it just takes yourself to just get out there and just look for it.
But then again, you have to realize, like, clubbing isn't just made for making friends. It's also made for becoming closer with the friends you have. Like, you usually go with your friends.
Yeah.
And it's usually like for the boys, in a sense, like just with the boys. And well, it's the same with the girls and the guys. Like, you'd usually just have a night, and like most of the time it's just to get closer to the people.
Yeah.
And that's what, it's just important.
It's like a bonding experience.
Yeah,
and you can,
of course,
you can like build up more.
Festivals are great for bonding experiences. I highly recommend festivals.
You really see your friends.
Yeah, your friends really do, like, come out. Like when you
Yeah.
go through hardships, when
Or
you lose all
traveling.
your shit, that's when you know who your true friends are. Like
Yeah.
all your shit. Anyways, like we're
Yeah.
going really long with this episode.
No, we're not.
We're on 54 minutes.
No,
Yeah.
that's been constantly
Time
rolling.
flies, you know.
We're on 40 something,
All right.
29 plus.
Well, in the documentary, I think,
Yeah.
as you were saying, there was a lot to do. We were talking a lot about group dynamics and individualism.
Yeah.
How, like, in a big group, you can't talk about how you feel because it's just not the right
It has to be
environment.
one-on-one almost. Like it's the best.
Yeah, so that's kind of what the documentary was kind of like reaching out to, or like trying to communicate was like most of these conversations can't be done in a group, only mainly through individually.
Yeah.
So it was kind of encouraging people to try and find that person that you can say that, or maybe the people you can, and to kind of stick with them. And
Yeah.
and the other thing we were trying to encourage was counseling as well, just kind of reaching out and just even making that step to do it. And
Yeah.
we talked to a lot of people about their experiences. It was really interesting because one part of the 90% of people found counseling really helpful. They
Yeah.
said, like, one guy was talking, Thomas, he was talking about how it helped him through a really bad breakup, and he didn't go anymore when he knew he just, he had enough like therapy to help him through it.
Yeah.
Whereas we had a guy who identifies as trans, and he was talking about how he went to numerous of counselors,
Yeah.
and how a lot of them were very like bad. Like he
Yeah.
had one experience where I'm editing this right now, and I don't know if it'll make it because I don't know if it'll suit the tone, but
Yeah.
he was talking about how he went into a counseling session, and it was just them like asking really weird questions that had nothing to do with what he was there for. And then he opened up the door, and he was still waiting out in the lobby, and he said, "Oh, by the way, do you self-harm?" in front of like everyone. And he said he never in his life had such a bad experience, and
Yeah.
it completely threw him off. But I think what people need to know is, like, if there's just one bad counselor, that doesn't mean that
Doesn't
all
mean
of
they're
them
all
are
bad.
bad.
Yeah,
Because he
yeah.
kept trying and trying, and eventually he found a woman that completely was able to give him what he wanted.
Yeah.
Like he needed to be diagnosed with gender dysphoria in order to continue hormone treatment,
Yeah.
get to testosterone, etc., etc. So he just said it took him so long, but he got to that place where he needed to be to get what he needed and to get help that he needed.
Yeah.
So I think it's just a matter of keep trying, and
Yeah, just
it'll
persistence.
work out. Yeah, like
Big time.
fight for it,
Yeah.
I know it's hard, but if you really want to get better and you need help, it's worth it. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Big time.
Everyone's got to do it in their own little way. That's what you got to realize. Everyone's going through the same shit. Like one of the things what we touched on earlier, you said that everyone's on like kind of a same emotional wavelength. In Joe Rogan said it in one of his stand-ups, and it was like, what if everyone's living the exact same life just in different bodies?
Yeah.
And I think that's one interesting way of looking at it. I discussed it with someone, with Evan, and it's an interesting way of looking at it, but then if you think about it, it just goes back down to our animal instincts, you know? And that emotionally we can all like feel the same emotions. It's just how we deal with them, like we said. It's all this stuff.
Yeah, man. I mean, you all have the same. Everyone's got the same gearbox, but it's all tuned differently.
Yeah. And it, like, we're all the center of our own universe as well.
Yeah,
So it's
exactly.
like very hard sometimes to put things in perspective.
Yeah.
But again, just the main message is just reach out for
Yeah.
your friends and family and everyone that needs some help.
That's it. That was sweet.
Thanks
It
for
was
having me.
Really sweet conversation. So when's the podcast? Not the podcast. The documentary coming out. When are you planning?
So I'm gonna do the.
It's going to be out by the time this is out, probably.
I hope so. Yes, I
Yeah.
really, really hope so. And if not, please stick around and watch it.
And where's it going to be? What's it going to be on?
I'm gonna probably put it on YouTube mainly, and then Facebook. But I feel like Facebook, like you put content up and it kind of gets lost a little bit. It's
Yeah.
good for
Yeah.
short term, but long term, I want people to be able to click onto it.
Yeah.
No matter what year it is. But yeah, I think this project isn't really for me or for for me specifically or anything. It's kind of it was more for the guys that were there. It was like
Yeah.
almost like a counseling session for them to be able to talk about their emotions, but it's just mainly for anyone that is going through something or wants to learn more about how to help people. So hearing people talk about it, you can just get a perspective and get more information on how you can do that.
Sweet.
But,
it's called All Boy.
Boys Actually Do
Boys
Cry.
actually do. All boys do cry.
Actually do.
Yeah.
Actually do.
Boys.
They do.
There you
Yeah.
go.
We had 2 boys cry on camera.
I can do
So
a little demo here. I mean, like, let me
Yeah. Let's
No,
shed
no.
a tear. Shed a tear for the
I'm
intro.
gonna I'm gonna I can't cry in front of
Sweet.
the crowd.
Anyway, thank you so much.
thank you for
Thank you
having me,
thank you for
guys.
coming on.
Sweet.
All right, guys. Catch you.
See you next. Do you want to? By the way, do you want to say? Shout no. We already.
Shout
did it.
out to
No, we already finished.
Mom, Dad.
It. Oh,
I wouldn't be
sweet.
here without you.
Catch you next week, guys. Whoa. All right.
Yo, Tio, drop that shit.